euthanasia chick.
This is just so stupid. About what?
The euthanasia chick point.
About their
Yeah.
euthanasia chick. EU.
Michael,
Yeah.
which checkpoint called that?
Is that right?
I just want to fix it as well.
Yeah, euthanasia checkpoint.
And we'll have any of this map.
Oh no, that'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, no, stop. Please stop.
What's that?
Hi. Mike, sorry, we've just got checkpoint. Could you just do some speaking for me?
Oh, sure. Oh, now I've got stage fright, I don't know what to say. Something to do with... the perpetrator is a is a male aged 18 to 25, Māori or Samoan. He's wearing a black hoodie. Cool. Oh, sorry.
Quite awkward, actually.
That's really awkward. All good, Mitch?
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Multitasking. Stinny, you want something to do?
Go to another job, mate. We've got other things to do. We've broken the story. We just said you guys follow.
What? That rugby you?
Yeah, no, I won't go back to the next one.
That's all you need.
Well, if you want to meet it, Brad over there doing Facebook Live. Oh, it's not Facebook, is it, Brad?
Yeah.
Are you right?
Yeah.
I got it up here.
Thank you.
What colour tint do you got?
Oh,
No, I'm going to give it open the window.
I've
got
like,
four, four. About four? Yeah, 4 3.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Acting Superintendent Paul Basham, and I am the District Commander here in Wellington. I'm here to talk to you today about Operation Painter and provide some context as to why the checkpoint operation was conducted. In August of 2016, the coroner advised police that toxicology results from a post-mortem had identified a particular Class C controlled drug as a contributing factor in the death of an individual. This death occurred in June 2016, and at the time there was no information that the death was suspicious. I'd also like to add that the deceased was not a person suffering from a terminal illness. As a consequence, the coroner referred the death to police and an investigation was commenced. Section 179 of the Crimes Act, which is aiding and abetting suicide, is the principal focus of the police investigation. And I would like to note that this crime is a punishable by a maximum term of 14 years of imprisonment. I want to stress that the investigation is still very much in its early stages, but I am able to say at this point that our inquiries have identified other deaths that also require further investigation with respect to the serious offence of aiding and abetting suicide. As a consequence of our inquiries, police became aware of a meeting in Lower Hutt on the 2nd of October 2016. In the interests of the preservation of life, we made a decision to set up a checkpoint to obtain the details of the people who were attending this meeting, as we were concerned for their well-being. 7 cars with people from the meeting were stopped and details from 10 people were obtained. They were not questioned about the meeting. Over the following week, 9 of these people were visited and welfare and support information was provided. 1 person declined contact with police. The information obtained during this checkpoint enabled police to take advice and then provide support and information to those people who we had reason to believe may be contemplating suicide. Preservation of life was central to our intentions and our engagement. There is no doubt that this is a challenging area from a policing perspective. However, we must fulfil our duty to preserve life and our obligation to investigate serious offences such as aiding and abetting suicide, regardless of the strength of the feeling of the issue. I am very aware of the concerns around the actions taken regarding the checkpoint, and I would like to assure the public that we are taking all necessary steps on this aspect. As you will be aware, police have notified the matter to the Independent Police Conduct Authority, given the concerns which have been raised about the operation. I am confident that staff have acted in the best interests of the community and they carried out the road stop in good faith and for good reasons. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
You say you acknowledge that there are concerns about the checkpoint. What are your concerns?
I'm very aware of the high degree of public interest in our actions, and I know that as an agency, police have referred this to the Independent Conduct Authority. It's not my intention to litigate the concerns of those issues through the media this afternoon, but what I can say is I'm confident, based on what I know now, that our staff, based on what they knew then, acted reasonably in good faith, and they did so around the central issue of the duty of care we have with regard to preserving life.
Was the checkpoint legal?
Again, I'm very aware of the concerns that are out there in the community and by interested parties. It's not my intention to litigate or discuss the merits of that particular issue through the media this afternoon. There will be other opportunities for us to do that, and we will do so in the appropriate time, in the appropriate way.
At this point, who gave authorisation for this checkpoint to take place?
Police work operational police work often requires our officers to make time-critical decisions, and the decision to conduct the checkpoint is within that context of that sort of challenge for our officers, that they had to make a decision at the time, and they made that decision around this preservation of life.
But you say it has been referred to the IPCA. Is that not therefore indicating that you are acknowledging something was done and it was done wrong?
I think the police are acknowledging that there is a legitimate concern around the question you're asking me, and that we have taken, I think, what is an unusual step or a rare step to self-report to the IPCA, and quite rightly the Independent Police Conduct Authority will look into those questions, and we look forward to the opportunity to cooperate with the authority or anybody else that wants to address the issue. The issue of legality that we understand has been legitimately raised and that needs to be addressed, but it's not the time for us to address that today at a media conference.
Have these people been under any police surveillance during this investigation?
No.
No electronic surveillance?
There is some aspects of the investigation in terms of the integrity of the investigation, the fact that there are some issues of sub judice and potential, depending on the long-term outcome of the investigation, that could be some sub judice and just some stuff that I can't talk about.
How many suspected assisted suicides are you looking at as part of the investigation?
Again, as much as I would like to be able to provide more information to address your question, I am constrained by issues of the integrity of the investigation and more broad issues around sub judice or potential sub judice, and I cannot go into those sorts of details.
So we know that police are given the power to stop vehicles for the purpose of road safety. Did you use those powers to gather this information?
Again, it's not my intention to discuss
I mean,
or
that's
litigate.
A very simple yes, no. Did you use those powers of maintaining road safety to get this information?
Yes, again, I think I've answered that. It's not my intention to litigate the issue that you raised today through the media. The police will do so at the appropriate time in the appropriate manner, and we look forward to that opportunity.
Okay, so that appropriate manner is through the IPCA. Will you take on its recommendations as binding?
Oh, we will certainly take on board its recommendations.
Will you
as an
accept
agency.
them and adopt them?
Well, I guess that's a hypothetical. The police has a statutory relationship with the IPCA and vice versa. You're asking me to comment on something that is in the future and speculate on an outcome that no one can predict at this point. But as a general rule, as an agency, we always take the recommendations of the IPCA very seriously, and I see no reason that we would do anything other than that with regards to this issue.
The group in question has said that its members have felt harassed and have become nervous as a result of police checking in on them after having their details taken through this checkpoint.
Sure.
Many of these are elderly women.
Mm-hmm.
What's your response to that?
I think there's probably a couple of things I can clarify in response to your question. So firstly, I know there's been a lot of speculation that somehow the New Zealand Police have a particular interest in a group exit or otherwise. And I want to say quite clearly today that that is not the case. We do not have an interest in any particular group, nor do we take a position around euthanasia. We're acutely aware of the sensitivity of this issue and the broader public debate. And we as an agency, quite rightly, have no interest in that. We're purely objective and focused around the criminal investigation into aiding and abetting suicide. In regards to the other part of your question around the people that we visited, we were acting in the interests of preserving life and providing support to people who we believed were contemplating suicide. As an agency, as individual officers, we took an oath to preserve life, and it's something that is central to us as an agency and to our culture. And when we become aware of information that people are contemplating suicide, we can't look the other way. We have to act. And so we took some advice and we took some actions based on that advice, and we tried to design an intervention that would be both compassionate and appropriate and respectful, and provide these people with some advice around the issue.
Why did the officers who visited these people not leave a business card to say who they were if the person wants to follow up?
Look, I can't comment on that. I don't know. That's look, I don't know. No particular reason. I wouldn't have thought there's any particular reason why they would or they wouldn't.
Can you say what the Class C control example was?
No, I can't.
Wasn't
That's a matter that's I can't comment on, given the fact that there is a matter before the court.
A recreational drug?
Again, I just can't comment on that. I'm sorry about that.
Why won't you say who gave the green light on this?
Because I think the way that you frame the question doesn't adequately address the decision. The decision was an operational decision that was taken at the time by an officer who was in the field with some advice from their superiors based on what was happening in front of them.
So it was an officer in the field who made the final decision on this?
It was a collective decision, but ultimately it was a decision as a result of things that were unfolding in front of the investigation team at the time. So it wasn't preordained, it wasn't precast, it wasn't pre-planned. Police have to think on their feet, on the fly, and make an appreciation around fast-moving factors and considerations. And this is an example of that. And I want to stress, and I think this is really important, that the central issue around the decision to set up the checkpoint was around preserving life.
You said that it was in consultation with superiors. How high in the chain of police command did this go?
Just here locally within the investigation team.
So to what level? Inspector, area commander?
Yeah, the oversight of the investigation is at detective senior sergeant level and detective inspector level within the district.
In the initial statement from police we were given, it said that police are responsible for enforcing New Zealand's laws, and currently suicide or encouraging and helping someone to commit suicide is illegal in New Zealand. That's incorrect though, isn't it? Because
Yes, it is.
suicide is not illegal.
That is incorrect, and we regret that. There was an oversight in the media release, and we regret that, and certainly regret if that caused any anxiety to people that are, affected by what's happening. But the opportunity presents itself now today is to be unequivocal around the focus of the police investigation, which is in pursuit of section 179 of the Crimes Act, which is around aiding and abetting suicide, which I want to remind everybody carries a significant term of imprisonment and reflects the gravity which Parliament at the time saw fit to build into the legislation.
Has any disciplinary action been taken or anyone suspended while this investigation? Well, it's been referred to the IPCS.
I think the only way that I can deal with that is to say that based on what I know now, based on what they knew then, we believe our officers acted in good faith and what they did was reasonable. If in time others, such as the IPCA, have a different view, then we'll have to take that into account. But at this stage, we believe that our officers acted in good faith, and that what they did was reasonable in the interests of preserving life.
Have you reviewed the whole investigation file?
Sorry?
Have you reviewed the whole investigation file?
No, I haven't personally.
So you don't know what other investigation techniques have been used prior to the checkpoint?
I have as the district commander, I have a broad interest in oversight of the investigation, but it doesn't involve every tactical or operational aspect of the inquiry. And I want to stress that this is in its initial stages, that we haven't made any decisions around whether or not this will end up in a prosecution, and we will not be making that decision in isolation. We would take legal advice both internally and externally, most probably through Crown law, and those decisions will be taken in accordance with the Solicitor General's guidelines. Evidential sufficiency is just one of those considerations, and the public interest is another major consideration. So please be assured that we are firstly in the initial stages of our investigation. Secondly, we are looking into several deaths that we believe fall within the ambit of the offence of 179 of the Crimes Act, aiding and abetting suicide. These are serious criminal offences, or alleged or potential criminal offences, and as an agency we have an obligation to investigate. We don't have a choice in this, given the gravity of the offence and the fact that we're looking at a number of deaths.
I don't mean for this to
So
sound
we haven't
glib.
made any decisions, but we haven't made any decisions as to where this will ultimately land, and we won't make those decisions in isolation.
Okay,
Is
two
it
more,
okay
two more
for
questions.
Is it okay for the police to break the law if they're acting in good faith?
I think I've answered your question.
Well, no, because that's what it's coming across as, is that advice was sought within the police, and that they, rather than saying, yes, it's legal, we said it's in good faith, and so we acted in good faith. Why didn't you act knowing whether it was legal? Why didn't they seek legal advice?
Again, and I'll deal with it one more time, is that we are very aware of the sensitivity of the issue around the roadblock. We have taken the rare step of self-referring to the IPCA. We will make ourselves available and at the appropriate time, in the appropriate manner, in the appropriate way, and mitigate, or litigate rather, that issue in those forums. But I will not litigate that issue at a media conference this afternoon.
Final question.
Can I just ask, is the whole investigation the subject of the IPCA inquiry?
Not to my knowledge. I think at the moment we have self-referred on this aspect of the checkpoint, and that's the scope, but you'd have to ask the IPCA about that. They're an independent agency.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, people.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.